Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Dynamics 365 Tech Talk. Today's topic is transitioning from export to Azure Data Lake to Synapse Link. Today's session is part one of a series by the same name. My name is Rich Black, and I will be your moderator today. We'll be broadcasting this session through Teams live event. The session is being recorded on behalf of Microsoft Corporation. So presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Milinda Vitharana, Principal Product Manager, and Jila Yadav, Principal Solution Architect. Now, before I hand it over to them, let's take a quick look at the topics for each session in this series. Today, we're going to cover the overview of Synapse Link for Dataverse and the transition process there. In tomorrow's session, we're going to change the agenda a little bit, and you'll receive updated invitations. We'll update the TechTalk page a little bit, as indicated here on screen. Tomorrow, we're going to cover architecture patterns and virtual data warehousing, in which we'll explore patterns. We'll get started with virtual data warehousing using Synapse Link. In the subsequent session, which is scheduled for November 16th, we'll explore cloud data warehousing, including incremental data ingestion. And then finally, on November 21st, we're going to cover lakehouse architecture and working with transformation of data using Spark Notebooks. So with that said, let me hand it over to Milinda to get us started.
Thank you, Rich. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. If you're watching this recording later, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining. So here's what we're going to walk through today, JJ and I. First of all, let's just try to get to the common understanding of what is Synapse Link for Dataverse. And then let's also talk about Microsoft Fabric, how Dynamics and Dataverse connects to Microsoft Fabric. But of course, there's a transition, there's an upgrade process, and then you get the benefits of Microsoft Fabric and so many great things that are coming. So let's spend a little bit of time understanding what the transition looks like. And of course, call to action, your homework. What can you do? Where can you learn more? We'll walk through that as well. So this is the first of a series of sessions on this, and we're going to share a whole bunch of links and resources today. Certainly there's a few additional sessions which are deep dives that you are welcome to attend as well. So with that, let's get started. So the simplest way to think about Synapse Link for Dataverse is it is a single experience to work with all Dynamics data for analytics. Let me explain. If you've been with the Dynamics community for some time, you know that we're on a quest to unify all these different Dynamics products under one umbrella, under one low-code platform, and enable you to work with not only the finance and operations tools or sales or customer service or pro dev tools. The idea is we bring all these tools, all these great products under one platform, the Power Platform. And Dataverse is the platform behind all that power. So if you have Dynamics 365, whether it's F&O or sales or customer service, you already have Dataverse. Dataverse is powering your application. If you're using Power Apps for application development, if you're using Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents, Power Pages, Power stuff, Dataverse is already there. And Dataverse is more than just a database. It has many databases, of course, but it also has capabilities that powers business logic, analytics, integration, so many features built into one platform. So that's what Dataverse is. Now, Synapse Link for Dataverse essentially is a one-click experience, single-click experience, with which you can select all data from Dynamics, continuously export that data into your data lake, and certainly work with Synapse and other tools. So the idea, what we wanted to do really is to eliminate the pain in working with your data using analytics tools. So I'm sure you're aware, but Synapse Link for Dataverse now supports finance and operations data. So essentially we have one experience to work with all data, including finance and operations. So finance and operations data in Synapse Link Dataverse is generally available. It has been generally available since early September. So I've been talking for a few minutes. Let's see a demo of finance and operations data in Synapse Link. JJ, do you want to take over?
Thanks, Milinda. So let me share my screen So here I'm sharing the lifecycle services. So the customers or users who are familiar with the finance and operations environment knows the LCS. This is the admin portal for managing your environment and all. And this is the page where you basically also enable export to data leak add-in. So I have this environment where export to data leak add-in is already installed. I want to show that like the Synapse Link can coexist with the export to data links. That's the one thing. So export to data leak is already enabled. One thing you'll notice that there's your LCS is already linked with finance and operation in Power Platform. Power Platform information, integration information is shared here. You can see these environments name and all that details. To enable the Synapse Link for FNO data, finance and operations data, one thing you have to do into the finance and operation is turn on a configuration key. This is listed in the documentation as well. The configuration key is named as SQL row version change tracking. So this is a prerequisite to enable that. And then to enable and set up the Synapse Link for Dataverse, you'll basically go to make.powerapps.com. This is the maker portal of the Power App. So this is the kind of the maker experience for the Power Platform users. And so the experience of the setting of the Synapse Link is basically going to be from the make.powerplatform.com. Here you will first select a environment. So I have selected the environment which is linked to my finance and operation environment. As you can see here, this is the finance CDS. I selected the finance CDS environment, and you will see Azure Synapse Link in here. The experience of creating a Synapse Link is a simple one-click process, a few-click process. As you can see here, I click the new link. Here, I don't have to create the key vault and all those kind of things which I have to do in the export to data lake. What I can do here is just simply, select my resource group, the Synapse workspace, and I have to use the Delta. We'll talk about some of these things as well. So use the Spark pool to bring the Delta conversions, and I select my storage account. Here also you'll notice that there is a select enterprise policy with managed services. This is a security feature. So with the Synapse Link, you can also now bring the secure firewall, storage account, and Synapse Link will be able to connect to that. So there is documentation of how to set up the enterprise policy with the managed service identity. You can select that. The next experience, as you can see here, is is you'll be able to set up the frequency. That right now the minimum frequency here is 15 minutes. So I can set up the frequency. I can click select Dataverse data like the CE or other sales, CE, marketing data, as well as the finance and operations data in this list. So all the tables which has the row version change tracking enables appear in this list. I can just select these tables and save, and this will basically create so this is a kind of installation experience as well as selection experience. So this is a simplest unified experience to enable the Synapse Link for your FNO data as well as the Dataverse data. I have already done that. Like once the profile is set up, I can go here and see that what tables are running. So this shows all the tables which has been active in this environment. It will also show the tables which are currently initializing. So similar experience as export to data lake. There is initial sync in progress, and once the tables are there, it's become active. This information is all available here, the record count, and all those informations. You'll also have the details about what file systems like storage account is connected, what Synapse workspace is connected, and all those things, the configurations which you have selected in the Synapse Link. So all that information is available. You can also, not only that, you can also select this and click these buttons, go to Azure Data Lake and go to Azure Synapse Workspace to jump right into the data lake and Synapse Workspace to query the data. And notice that, like, we don't have to set up any things like CDM util and things like that. It's all there. Let me just go back a little bit into the data lake. Like if I go to data lake where my profile is set up, what I can see here is the data is being exported in the data lake. I have these folders where the CSV data reside, incremental CSV data, and then Delta Lake folder is there in my data lake where the Delta converted data is stored. You'll notice that these partition, Custrons partition folders, the data is partitioned here by year. So you have, the Parquet file in here, and the data is partitioned in different folders. We'll talk about some of these benefits, like how some of these things improvise the query experience and all that in the Synapse, but this is all kind of integrated. The next thing we have is in the Synapse side. On the Synapse side, it automatically going to create a database, Lake database, and have all the tables which are there, which you have enabled, available in the Synapse workspace as a database. And Synapse allow you to query the data using the T-SQL or a Spark. So here as example, I'm selecting the cust group tables, which I exported, using this Synapse serverless, the query engine behind it, and then, basically is showing the result. So the first time it may take a little bit time, but second time onward, because this data is kind of all the things is cached, it will be faster. I can also use again notebooks, which is the Spark experience, and I can query the same data, without having to do anything using the Spark notebook. So the data is in the lake is now available in the Delta Lake format. It can be accessible with the serverless, and it can be accessible with the Spark notebooks and things like that, right? So that's the first part of this. There is more. Many customers who basically set up use the export to data lake today are using the change feed features, right? So many times you may need to move the data from data lake back to Azure SQL or SQL Server on-prem, and some of those scenarios. And we'll cover some of those things in the deep dive. But here's another experience I want to show. When you're selecting creating a Synapse link, you can basically you can just skip selecting connect to Azure Synapse Workspace and just give a storage account and a storage account is a source group and a storage account, and that's it. So this, and now also you can select FNO tables, Dataverse tables, same experience. You can also enable that interval frequency, 15 minutes, and you can add tables here. What happened with this? Like you have not selected the Spark pool for conversions, you have not selected a Synapse Workspace. In these scenarios, what will happen is the data, incremental data, will basically show up in your data lake. As you can see here, I have enabled this already. So as you can see here, cust group, there is incremental CSV data available. Here, I have the model.json file, which basically describes the schema of this CSV. Now I can incrementally take this data and sync this to Azure SQL, other services, and so on. So don't worry, we have a deep dive sessions on all of these things. How you can use the Delta Lake data using the Synapse serverless, or how you can integrate with the Azure SQL. So we'll cover some of those things in the deep dive sessions. But this is a kind of an overview how to set up, how to configure, and then use this Synapse Link features with the finance and operations data. So that was my demo. Over to you, Milinda.
Thank you, JJ. So you've seen how Synapse Link to Dataverse works with finance and operations data. So essentially, what we've done is we've given one way to work with all your data. But you should think of Synapse Link as the first step. There's a lot of great things that are going to come next. You may have heard of Microsoft Fabric, which is an evolution of Power BI and Synapse together. By onboarding to Synapse Link for Dataverse, you essentially open the door for a lot of innovations that are going to come. And I'm going to talk about one of them. So what you can expect is, Microsoft Fabric, essentially, if you look at Synapse Link, it's a data engineer. It's a more of an ETL, pro dev kind of an experience. There's a lot of things that you need to know. But Microsoft Fabric brings that skill level down. You can do a lot without being a pro dev or a pro data engineer. Essentially, there are a lot of things that as a data analyst that you can do. So Microsoft Fabric makes it super easy to work with the data, and it enables more and more folks in your organizations to use the data. So what we are going to do is to enable two-way integration with Microsoft Fabric and your data in Dataverse from Dynamics. So let's just see what that means. Now, I've talked about Microsoft Fabric. Essentially, it's in public preview right now. It's going to reach GA soon. Microsoft Fabric is a SaaS, software as a service platform, completely cloud-based. It brings together all these great things that you're familiar with, including Power BI, Synapse Data Warehouse, Data Factory, Data Activator, some of the new products. But it's also based on this single data platform called OneLake. Now, Dynamics 365 data in Power Platform on Microsoft Fabric, they pretty much integrate together in a two-way integration. So the idea is all the AI-driven insights that are enabled inside Microsoft Fabric. Now you're going to be able to use those capabilities with Dynamics data. Of course, you're probably familiar with Power Platform. Some of you may be building Power Apps also. So the idea is that it's a circle. So you can take Dynamics data, work with that data in Fabric without having to copy that data, without having to build pipelines. Now you can use Microsoft Fabric to combine, use Spark, SQL, data warehouses, combine with your other data. Now, of course, Microsoft Fabric makes it super easy for you to, work with that data. But the idea is with those insights that you find, you can come back and build Power Apps again without having to copy that data back again. So essentially what we have done is through Synapse Link, we've enabled you all the innovations that are coming in Microsoft Fabric. Now it's within your reach. So let's play a quick video just to show you the flavor of things to come. So Microsoft Platform, Power Platform, Microsoft Fabric, all the Dynamics data is there. So essentially data from Dataverse becomes available in Microsoft Fabric. Now, with the insights in Microsoft Fabric, you can work with those insights and those tables in Power Platform, in Dataverse. You can build Power Apps, you can build automations. And here's how it works. So you can choose the Analyze option in the Maker portal, and this wizard will launch. It'll do some prereqs, like for an example, if there's no connection, it'll help you create a connection straight away from here. Now, once you create a secure connection, that's it. You can now select a workspace in Microsoft Fabric with which you're going to link data from this environment. You can create a workspace or pick one. That's pretty much it. So the system then initializes it, creates a connection, and all your data becomes securely available in Microsoft Fabric. So authorized users can work with that data in Microsoft Fabric without actually having to copy it. Now, Microsoft Fabric provides a lot of capabilities we talked about, like SQL, for an example. So you can work with SQL, you can work with Spark. You can essentially work with all the tools inside Microsoft Fabric. Now, with all these insights, what you can do is you can actually access that data from Microsoft Fabric. So when you go into this virtual entity wizard, you will see the ability to connect to Microsoft Fabric. So you can pick a Microsoft Fabric workspace, you can pick a lakehouse, you can pick a data warehouse. Essentially, what you can do is pick tables from Microsoft Fabric, Microsoft OneLake, and the system will help you to create a virtual table. So virtual tables is a concept that's in Dataverse. So essentially, all your data in Microsoft Fabric, now you can work with that data using virtual tables. So once you create a virtual table, of course, building an app or a Power Page or an automation is super easy. So here in this example, we just created a simple app, a tablet app, using the insights that you have found inside Microsoft Fabric. And of course, it just works like a model-driven app, super easy to do. So if you think about it, the first thing that we've done is we've actually enabled FNO data in Synapse Link for Dataverse. So if you're using Synapse Link for Dataverse, essentially, we've provided one way for you to work with all your data. So the first step is upgrading to Synapse Link. If you're not on Synapse Link anymore, that's probably the first thing to do. So in the next section, let's quickly walk through what that upgrade process looks like and what benefits you can get from that upgrade. And of course, let's also talk about a little bit about the, expected effort, timelines. Now, this is not to give you a very detailed guideline. Those sessions are coming, but this is just to give you an overview, an idea of what that transition looks like. So some of you may be using Export to Data Lake today. Some of you may be using previous generation, bring your own database, or previous generation integration technologies. So essentially, Synapse Link for Dataverse is generally available. It has been so for a long time. Export to Data Lake is generally available. It's been so for some time. The first step is we've combined these two together. So it's an evolution. It is that unification approach that you're familiar with. So first step is to upgrade to Synapse Link for Dataverse. Now, as you've seen, after you upgrade to Synapse Link to Dataverse, you now have opened up a lot of opportunities to work with your data in Fabric directly. So what we mean by that is, so for an example, step one, upgrading to Synapse Link, you should think about it as a sort of, you have existing investments, you have existing pipelines that you have built, they're being used by hundreds and maybe if not thousands of users in production. So the idea is, let's upgrade to Synapse Link and keep those investments. You shouldn't have to rewrite those reports or rebuild those pipelines. Now, upgrading to Synapse Link, as we will show you, you notice that from demos, it's so much simpler, but we will also talk about some of the cost advantages that you're going to get. So think of upgrading Synapse Link as a technical upgrade. You're going to get to keep your investments, but at the same time, you're going to reduce a lot of your recurring costs. Now, the next step, think of the transition to Microsoft Fabric as almost like hey, now we have these reports running. We made this technical upgrade. We are getting a whole lot of benefits. However, there are these new opportunities that are going to open up in terms of enabling low-code users, in terms of enabling new scenarios that you didn't have before. So I think that should be the way we think about this transition. So step one is upgrading to Synapse Link. Step two is opening up new scenarios. So let's look at what those are in a little bit of detail. And, the way to think about this is when you upgrade to Synapse Link, you get to extend your existing investments. So it's the same data shape, minimal changes to existing pipelines. So your net, your benefit is you're going to reduce operational costs. Of course, you have seen from the demo, it's easy to configure and manage, but that's, a small part, I think. Of course, there's built-in integration. There's no impact to operational workload. So, but I think the biggest benefit is going to be in terms of the efficiencies, cost reductions that you're getting in terms of delta per K, right? The underlying format. So,
and other key things also, we are going to cover many of these transition guidance in subsequent sessions, which we are going to do as part of this series. So we'll cover that as well. Today, we'll demo how the cost saving comes from the delta conversion. So, this has been in preview. Many of the customers has kind of a raised concern that hey, I need to pay for delta conversion. So we'll kind of explain that scenario, how the delta conversion actually could save you cost compared to, add you extra cost. So
absolutely. So this is a detailed slide, JJ, I think you're going to cover in coming sessions. So we're not going to go into the details. But the point is to let you know that there's a lot of material that will help you understand the TCO reduction.
Yeah.
Now, of course, in terms of the transition to Fabric, the idea here is that, once you do transition to Synapse Link, you have these capabilities, you have these new features that are going to become available to you. Like, for an example, no copy, no ETL, so your power users can securely work with the data in Fabric. But, again, the way to think about this is you have these production reports that are running with Export to Data Lake, Synapse Link, your business depends on it. Now, once you get that in place, the next step is going to be super easy. So let's focus a little bit on the total cost of ownership for upgrade to Synapse Link. Do you want to go ahead, JJ?
Yeah, sure. So as you saw, I think the setup and configuration experience is further simplified and unified. In Export to Data Lake, you had to bring many, additional components from the Azures. Now you still have to have the storage account and some of those things, but you can see the experience is very much unified and simple click process rather than the multiple step process where you have to copy paste the configurations and all. But we'll focus on this operating cost today, from the data integration perspective. So when you are using Export to Data Lake, so these are some of the kind of bullet points, like where you, what cost you're basically incurring from the Export to Data Lake. Like you are using storage, Azure storage, you are doing, data pipelines in many cases, you are moving the data from Azure Data Lake to Azure SQL or Synapse dedicated pool, or in many cases on-prem, you are using maintaining data factory jobs and things like that. You are doing maintaining these data pipeline and all those things, right? What with the Synapse Link, and many of these things are done just to gain performance and because the performance on the CSV file is not that great, and the cost of the CSV file querying is huge as well, right? So what we are what we have seen with the Delta Lake, the storage costs you usually get reduced to 60%, because Delta format is a highly compressed, Parquet format is highly compressed, and columnar format, and I'll show some examples of that today. And you will probably pay for a range of $300 to $3,000 do the Delta conversions, but we'll show the examples how some of these things can be saved from the the read cost which you are incurring on the Synapse serverless, as well as some of these data conversion jobs which you are maintaining. So Milinda, if you go to the next slide, I think that's a little deeper. I can show then the demo. So if we go deeper into the operational reporting cost, so at the high level again, the query cost, operational cost come from three components, right? The storage of the data, Export to Data Lake, as well as Synapse Link. Exporting data to your lake is part of the service. However, you pay for the Azure resources which you are using. So the storage cost is the one component of the data lake, and the storage cost is very economical. It's I believe $5 or per terabyte or something, which is very economical. So it's immaterial in many cases, but however, you will see that there is a Delta format is highly compressed. So as an example here, what we saw, a customer has 650 gigabytes of CSV files, and we are getting with Delta roughly around 6x compressions. And this is, I will show in a demo how we can do that. So in Ventrans, as an example, which is very common table, in many customers, it's a big table. If we export the data in CSV, I believe I had 2 million rows just, so it's a 1.3 gigabytes in CSV format. And if we do the same, do the Delta conversion on same data, it's become at 360 megabytes. So it's 6x compressions compared to CSV. What this 6x compression mean is like your also read cost of your Synapse queries can be 6x reduced. as example here, operating cost of querying and reporting, one of the customers, basically exporting the data, and using the serverless to do a lot of queries for integrations workload as well as, operational reporting. And the cost for their workload was, around $10,000 a month. Just example, and if we apply this things here, for 6-time reductions, that's cost of the Synapse query can go just, 6 times less, because and key thing to understand here is, Synapse serverless, the costing model is pay per, query kind of things, how much data is processed. So depending, so you will notice that, and we'll show that here in a demo that, CSV, no matter what you do, you are basically querying the full data. And when you do the Parquet, it's compressed data. So you basically save on that. So that's the key thing. And the example what we took here, the customer case was per month, there was 2,126 terabytes of data scanned for the Synapse serverless to query the CSV in their workloads. So this workload can vary, the compression can vary, but we wanted to kind of put an example how, some of these things can help you reduce the operating cost. So with that, I'll also share my screen and talk about an example where how I can calculate some of these costs. The first example I want to show, hey, how I can calculate the cost of the Synapse serverless. So I have a query, and I will share this in the chat as well as in the if on the slides, that this simple query, what it does is basically serverless, all the historical requests of serverless and amount of data processed. If you run this query, it will basically tell you how much monthly cost approximately is you are having on the Synapse serverless today. Now, the next thing I wanted to show is the compression example. So here, as you can see, here I have a export to data lake set up in here. And I have this table invent trans, right? This, if I go inside this invent trans table, I can see these are the CSV files. In real example, many customers has much more CSV data in this. I'm in the Azure Storage Explorer, and if I click select, stats on this folder, it's basically saying that I have 1.9 GB of data in this folder in invent trans. The same data, when I export it to Synapse Link and have the delta conversion, you can see here invent trans data is exported and is kind of available here in the partitions. These are some smaller file, but if I go back here and do the same steps on here, calculating the stats of this, you can see that this is just 337 MB of data. So this is where you can see that like this is a 6-time compression of the same data. It can vary, but predominantly what we have seen that like the delta, because it's a columnar format, compressed format, the saving of the storage itself is kind of a huge. And it's not just help with the cost, but also performance. Less data processing means better performance on the Synapse serverless side and all that. And read-write contention issues and other things are eliminated because it's support a ACID property. We'll go deep into some of those kind of things in subsequent sessions, but this is the kind of a fundamental of that. I'll also quickly try to cover a few other examples, just to give a context of how the data process Synapse serverless, especially when you're using Synapse serverless to process data. Here I have some SQL queries. I have two databases, one which is created on the Delta Lake format and another created on the CSV format from the export to data lake perspective. If you see that, what I'm doing here is the count of this cells line, right? You will notice that, when this count runs, the amount of data is going to process is going to be really small. As you can see here, it's just scanned 5 megabytes of the data. And it's much more efficient from this count perspective and cost perspective. That is just 5 megabytes of data compared to if I do the same query on the CSV data. So let's see the result of this. Here you can see that the data scan is 4,200 megabytes. So even when a simple query is like count 1, if it is a CSV, the Synapse serverless or any of these SQL engine has to scan all the data and then process it. Amount of data is moving is 1 megabytes, but it still has to read the 4,200 megabytes, and this is basically add the cost and performance, right? Here's another thing I want to show. If I do the so this is just on the compression side and how the data is works. But if I have a query like this where I'm just doing is summarizations of data, sales line data by data ID, item ID, and sales ID, in the Delta Lake format, I have I'm basically grouping and selecting a selected list of the columns, and you can see that the query responded much faster, and it scanned only 81 megabytes of data, right? So this is much smaller data compared to the total data size of the things which you will see in CSV. So if you run the same query in CSV, if your CSVs are 1.3 gigabytes, is going to scan 103 megabytes. Also, another aspect of it is like if I have a query like this, let me try to run this, where also not like I showed you the partition folders, right? So with the Delta Lake, we are also partitioning the data. So partitioning is based on the created date time. So if I have the partition data like this, and I query this data, this is even much faster. What I did is partition on the field 2023. So I'm only interested in 2023 data. And as you notice here, it's just a scan 2 megabytes of data. So this is like, it's not just only improving the performance, but you're improving the cost of when you query the data in this Synapse serverless. So that's the, kind of wanted to show from the demo perspective how the Delta Lake conversion saves cost as well as improve performance and reliability of the Synapse serverless. Okay, so that was it, Milinda. Like maybe we can go back to the slides.
Thank you, JJ. Yes, thank you for that great demo. Now, we've given you a lot of information. What's the homework? Let's talk about the plan to transition. How can you learn more? I know there's a lot of questions in the chat. I think we've tried our best to answer them. But how can you get answers after the session? So here's homework. We've given you a brief overview, but there's a lot more to come. And this deck you can use this deck, you can use this recording as an overview of the great things that are about to come. Of course, the next thing is just give it a try. As you've seen in the demos, it's so easy to configure. So just give it if you have a test environment, you can do this with your dev environments, tier 1 environments. Just give it a try. And of course, there's a lot of patterns that have been published. We have a series of sessions, JJ, that and Rich and Fast Track team is driving. Please review those. And then, of course, join the community. The next step after learning is, of course, create a plan. Now, if you are using Export to Data Lake today, if you're in production, there are thousands of customers who are in production. You can plan a transition. You have time until November next year, 2024. So there's a lot of guidance coming. There's a lot of help coming to help you make this transition. Just make a plan, pick some time, put it in the calendar, and then certainly you can work towards it. Now, if you're a customer of ours who's not live with Export to Data Lake, but perhaps planning to go live with it in the coming months or so, it might be better if you adopt Synapse Link from the start. So that way you avoid a fast follow conversion. Not that fast follow conversions are bad. It's probably driven by your project plans and risks and so on and so forth. But that's sort of our guidance. Now, of course, there's a lot of benefits that you can look forward to. As you've noticed, as JJ has demonstrated, there's a lot of cost advantages, the simplicity that you can do. And of course, in the future sessions, we're going to also talk about, how you can optimize your architecture. Maybe something that you can do as you do your upgrade, or perhaps something that you can look forward to. So, JJ, anything to add here?
No, I think this is good. And I think the transition guide, like the review patterns and transition guidance, this is the link here is also linked on the documentation page. This basically take you to the GitHub where a presentation is there, and which presentations basically covers all the different architecture patterns. And we are going to cover in the next 3 sessions those patterns and go deep dive into that. To explain like how you will transition from if you're using one pattern versus others. So that's those are the coming patterns, and there are more resources. There is a lot of documentations on the Synapse Link. Wanted to clarify that we started with some context that Synapse Link was already available with the CE and Dataverse platform and Power Platform. Now we are adding support of the finance and operations. So there is a lot of resource and a lot of documentations on the Synapse Link already. So these are some of the documentations specific to export to data lake, specific to FNO, but other documentations are there as well. Like one I will like to highlight is use managed identity with Azure, the documentation here, which basically provide you the guidance how to secure your storage account when using the Synapse Link. There's a lot of documentation on the Fabric. We have the Yammer group, which has more than several thousands customers and partners participating on the daily basis. We host weekly office hours there, so join that community, and it's really a vibrant community. A lot of feedbacks we get, and help from other community members. So it's just really important to join that, stay engaged, and help you a kind of a community there. We have these videos link as well, Synapse Link, and these videos like the TechTalk video will be published as well on the TechTalk site. But we already have some setup videos, step-by-step guidance on setting up videos on the Fabric as well. That's all I think we had, right, Milinda?
Yes, that is pretty much what we had. So Rich, if there's questions, I know there were a few in the chat, but if there's questions, we can certainly take them at this point.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of questions.
There are indeed a lot of questions, yes. One item that there's a handful of questions about, JJ and Milinda, that would be helpful to touch upon again is, what is the general availability date for Synapse Link and for Fabric? What's the relationship between those? Just to clarify, right? Synapse Link is generally available, but can you elaborate a little bit more on the plans for Fabric?
Absolutely. So just again to reiterate,
yep.
Synapse Link for Dataverse has been generally available for more than 2 years. Export to Data Lake became generally available early last year. Now, what we have done is the teams have been working to combine these two products together. Now, Synapse Link for Dataverse with FNO data is already generally available. It became generally available early September. If you've been with us in the preview program, you will recall that we had a preview that's running for about a year. We addressed a lot of the gaps. So, although it became generally available in September, we've been working on it with active customers for some time. So upgrade to Synapse Link step, it's generally available. Fabric, those new scenarios that we talked about, some of the new cool things that are coming, it's in public preview. You can try it. You can get a trial capacity. It's free. You can try it. It's going to be generally available pretty soon. I hear there's a conference coming in a couple of weeks. It's called Microsoft Ignite. So you should check it out.
All right. And on that note, we normally don't get into licensing details in these discussions, but is there any pointers that you can offer as to how this will be licensed and how customers will pay for this?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. You're right, Rich. I'm not an expert of licensing, but in general, when customers buy Dynamics 365, they get entitlements to Dataverse and Power Platform. So there's a very complicated formula. I'm not very familiar, but in general, when you license Dynamics, you get Power Platform. You can also buy Power Apps, you get Power Platform. Synapse Link for Dataverse is built into Power Platform. It's built into Dataverse. So like you get a quota of storage APIs, you get a lot of consumption, you get a lot of entitlements, they're called. So Synapse Link for Dataverse will consume those entitlements, and essentially you don't have to pay to have Synapse Link for Dataverse.
Just to clarify one point on there, like, because that was also a question, Milinda. When you are using Synapse Link for Dataverse, when you're exporting data to Data Lake, there is no storage being copied. Data is not being copied from FNO database to Dataverse. There is no requirement for even dual write. The data get directly from FNO to Data Lake. The entitlement is more about the APIs and services and what we are using to export data. So that applies. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. About that is a great clarification. Yes. I did not get that right. Thank you. Yeah, no. Data is not copied into Dataverse. It will not consume your storage. It's just compute. But the great thing about Synapse Link is export to Data Lake had some limits. Like, for example, you could only have 450 tables and so on. Those limits go away. So now you can create as many Synapse links as you want. And in one link, you can keep up to 1,000 tables. So, those limits go away.
Maybe, I don't know if you want to clarify on the Fabric side, like when you use the Fabric, that's how the entitlement storage works there. Maybe.
Yes. So Microsoft Fabric actually is a low-code environment. It's a low-code, no copy, no ETL. We'll probably go into it more in a couple of weeks. We'll publish more details about this. So the idea here is, as a low-code user, you don't need to bring storage. It will use Dataverse storage. So essentially, your data inside Dataverse is accessible from Fabric securely. So authorized users get to work with Fabric. There's no need to export data. Now that feature will consume Dataverse storage, and we will provide more details in the coming weeks.
There is one question I wanted to ask, whether having data in Lake integrations or Synapse Link API or flat file is preferred by customers. Do EMS would change users billing, and what customers would benefit through the Synapse Link solution is not clear. So just kind of throwing a light on that, like there are APIs on the FNO platforms as well as the Dataverse platforms, like OData APIs, custom API, DMF, which has, kind of capability to export data, import data and all those kind of things. That's not going away. Like that's there for integrations, real-time integrations, and some of those kind of scenarios, right? If you have use cases of that APIs, feel free to use it. This mechanism is more for bulk data and efficient data export, efficient making data available efficiently. And this is a service where we can make it friction-free for you. You don't have to configure anything. You just set up, select your tables, and you have the highly efficient export of the data available so that your data is offloaded from the ERP, and you can use that for analytics, BI, outbound integrations, and some of those kind of scenarios. So it's really important to understand that you can use different pieces for different use cases. Not one solution fits all. So APIs are going to be available. If the scenarios demand for APIs, go for it. If this scenario is bulk data, kind of a offloading from the ERP, yes, I mean, these are the kind of solutions.
A couple of questions have been related to the process of selecting tables or entities for export. I think that there are a couple of things in the works there to improve that experience. Milinda, can you expand on that?
Yes, absolutely. So what we have done is we've enabled all the tables that customers have ever selected from export to data lake with PU62, which I believe is 10.0.38 maybe. Earlier versions have lesser numbers of tables, but essentially we've been adding all the ready-made tables that customers have ever used with Export to Data Lake so that you can straight away go select them. Now, your custom tables, you can enable that change tracking property in FNO and it'll show up in Synapse Link. Microsoft ready-made tables, for whatever reason, if you missed anything, you can also add a table extension and then it will appear. So essentially all the tables with Export to Data Lake are enabled in Synapse Link, with the exception of 4 tables. Those are some kernel tables that we're working on. If you know what those guys are, they'll be enabled in the coming, 2-3 weeks. So all tables enabled. Entities. Now, if you're transitioning from BYOD, you may have built entities, you may have used some of the very complex legacy entities that we have. We do not support all entities at this point. So if you go to Synapse Link, it does support FNO entities, but we don't support all of them now. Now we are working on enabling some of those entities. That work should, I'm going to say December, early next year, so that you can select pretty much all the entities like you do in Export to Data Lake. Again, that should be a small, concern if you're transitioning from BYOD, but for Export to Data Lake, less so.
Just to clarify there, Milinda, you said that's December of this year and early next year is the correct time frame, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
One thing I wanted to just clarify on the entities, so the reason behind not all entities available, there is a feature, row version change tracking, released on the entities as well, which basically validate that what entities are valid for the row version change tracking, and those entities are allowed. And the reason for that feature is BYOD, many customers have raised these concerns of data inconsistency and performance problem with the BYOD. We do not want to repeat the same mistakes when we go and move these things through the Synapse Link. Synapse Link is materializing the entity. And materializing the entities incrementally. And as it was done by BYOD. So we want to make sure that whatever entities, whatever the patterns, because entities are multi-purpose in FNO. There are so much complex entities, which is sometimes becomes very difficult for any engines to identify the incremental changes and inconsistent basis. So we are trying to be very careful on that, what entities are allowed, so that we can make sure that when it's landed and materialized in the lake, it's consistent.
All right. And with that, we've reached our time for today. So again, I want to thank everyone in the audience for attending today. Thank our presenters, Milinda and Jila, for presenting today. And thank you all for your attendance and your questions. We will hang on and try to get through the remaining questions that are out there in the chat, but we'll conclude the recording and presentation at this point, and I hope you have a great rest of the day ahead. Thank you all.